cards, I have decided to pick up the Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual again. Today my plan was to prepare the next session of my own campaign, and I wanted to read something up about vampires just to make sure, and then I thought, why not do a video on vampires? So today I am going to read the chapter on Dungeons and Dragons Vampires for you. Let's get right into it. Awakened to an endless night, vampires hunger for the life they have lost and sate that hunger by drinking the blood of the living. Vampires abhor sunlight, for its touch burns them. They never cast shadows or reflections, and any vampire wishing to move unnoticed among the living keeps to the darkness and far from reflective surfaces. Whether or not a vampire retains any memories from its former life, its emotional attachments wither as one's pure feelings become twisted by undeath. Love turns into hungry obsession, while friendship becomes bitter jealousy. In place of emotion, vampires pursue physical symbols of what they crave, so that a vampire seeking love might fixate on a young beauty. A child might become an object of fascination for a vampire obsessed with youth and potential. Others surround themselves with art, books, or sinister items such as torture devices or trophies from creatures they have killed. Most of a vampire's victims become vampire spawn, ravenous creatures with a vampire's hunger for blood, but under the control of the vampire that created them. If a true vampire allows a spawn to draw blood from its own body, the spawn transforms into a true vampire no longer under its master's control. Few vampires are willing to relinquish their control in this manner. Vampire spawn become free-willed when their creator dies. Every vampire remains bound to its coffin, crypt, or gravesite, where it must rest by day. If a vampire didn't receive a formal burial, it must lie beneath a foot of earth at the place of its transition to undeath. A vampire can move its place of burial by transporting its coffin or a significant amount of grave dirt to another location. Some vampires set up multiple resting places this way. Neither a vampire nor a vampire spawn requires air. Now, here's a section about player characters as vampires. The game statistics of a player character transformed into a vampire spawn and then a vampire don't change, except that the character's strength, dexterity, and constitution scores become 18 if they aren't higher. In addition, the character gains the vampire's damage resistances, dark vision, traits, and actions. Attack and damage rolls for the vampire's attacks are based on strength. The save DC for charm is 8 plus the vampire's proficiency bonus plus the vampire's charisma modifier. The character's alignment becomes lawful evil, and the DM might take control of the character until the vampirism is reversed with a wish spell or the character is killed and brought back to life. considering how my party runs headfirst into combat, I better keep this in mind, just to be sure. Moving on. Oh, no. There's another info box on a very important vampire. Strahd of Tsarovich, who happens to be the main villain in the campaign I'm currently running. And again, I'm hoping my players don't listen to my videos, because they don't know yet that they are playing Curse of Strahd. Let's have a look what the monster manual says about Strahd. A brilliant thinker and capable warrior in life, Strahd von Tsarovich fought in countless battles for his people. When war and killing finally stripped him of his youth and strength, he settled in the remote valley of Barovia and built a castle on a towering pinnacle from which he could survey his lands. His brother Sergei came to live with him in Castle Ravenloft, becoming Strahd's advisor and constant companion. In his brother, Strahd saw everything he had lost. Sergei was handsome and young, while Strahd had become old and scarred. Resentment colored their relationship, eventually turning into hatred. Strahd's beloved, Tatiana, spurned him for Sergei, whom she pledged to marry. In a desperate attempt to win Tatiana's heart, Strahd forged a pact with dark powers that made him immortal. At the wedding of Sergei and Tatiana, he confronted his brother and killed him. Tatiana fled and flung herself from Ravenloft's walls. Strahd's guards, seeing him for a monster, shot him with arrows, but he did not die. He became a vampire, the first vampire according to many sages. In the centuries since his transformation, Strahd's lust for life and youth have only grown. He broods in his dark castle, cursing the living for stealing away what he lost, and never admitting his hand in the tragedy he created. Now that is of course a very, very short summary compared to the information we get in the campaign book Curse of Strahd. Come to think of it, maybe I should make a video on that. That goes on the list. Now, returning to general information on vampires. A vampire's lair. A vampire chooses a grand yet defensible location for its lair, such as a castle, fortified manor, or walled abbey. It hides its coffin in an underground crypt or vault, guarded by vampire spawn or other loyal creatures of the night. Regional effects. The region surrounding a vampire's lair is warped by the creature's unnatural presence, creating any of the following effects. There's a noticeable increase in the population of bats, rats, and wolves in the region. Plants within 500 feet of the lair wither, and their stems and branches become twisted and thorny. Shadows cast within 500 feet of the lair seem abnormally gaunt and sometimes move as though alive. A creeping fog clings to the ground within 500 feet of the vampire's lair. The fog occasionally takes eerie forms, such as grasping claws and writhing serpents. If the vampire is destroyed, these effects end after 2d6 days. Now, this is a mighty stat block. It covers the whole page. A vampire is a medium undead. Also, a vampire is a shape changer. Its alignment is lawful evil. It has a natural armor class of 16. It has 144 or 17 d8 plus 68 hit points and walking speed of 30 feet. Its strength, dexterity and constitution are each 18 with a modifier of +4. Its intelligence is a 17 with a modifier of +3. It has 15 points in wisdom with a modifier of +2. And again 18 points in charisma with a modifier of +4. It has dexterity +9, wisdom +7, and charisma +9 in its saving throws. Its skills are a perception +7 and stealth +9. It is resistant to necrotic, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons. It has 120 feet dark vision and a passive perception of 17. It speaks, understands, and writes all the languages it knew in life. It has a challenge rating of 13, which equals 10,000 experience points. Shape changer. If the vampire isn't in sunlight or running water, it can use its action to polymorph into a tiny bat or a medium cloud of mist or back into its true form. While in bat form, the vampire can't speak. Its walking speed is 5 feet and it has a flying speed of 30 feet. Its statistics, other than its size and speed, are unchanged. Anything it is wearing transforms with it, but nothing it is carrying does. It reverts to its true form if it dies. While in mist form, the vampire can't take any actions, speak or manipulate objects. It is weightless, has a flying speed of 20 feet, can hover, and can enter a hostile creature's space and stop there. In addition, if air can pass through a space, the mist can do so without squeezing, and it can't pass through water. It has advantage on strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws, and it is immune to all non-magical damage, except the damage it takes from sunlight. Legendary resistance, 3 a day. If the vampire fails a saving throw, it can choose to succeed instead. Misty escape. When it drops to 0 hit points outside its resting place, the vampire transforms into a cloud of mist, as in the shape changer trait, instead of falling unconscious, provided that it isn't in sunlight or running water. If it can't transform, it is destroyed. While it has 0 hit points in mist form, it can't revert to its vampire form, and it must reach its resting place within 2 hours or be destroyed. Once in its resting place, it reverts to its vampire form. It is then paralyzed until it regains at least 1 hit point. After spending 1 hour in its resting place with 0 hit points, it regains 1 hit point. Regeneration. If the vampire regains 20 hit points at the start of its turn, the vampire regains 20 hit points at the start of its turn if it has at least 1 hit point and isn't in sunlight or running water. If the vampire takes radiant damage or damage from holy water, this trait doesn't function at the start of the vampire's next turn. Spider climb. The vampire can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. Vampire weaknesses. The vampire has the following flaws. Forbiddance. The vampire can't enter a residence without an invitation from one of the occupants. Harmed by running water. The vampire takes 20 acid damage if it ends its turn in running water. Stake to the heart. If a piercing weapon made of wood is driven into the vampire's heart while the vampire is incapacitated in its resting place, the vampire is paralyzed until the stake is removed. Sunlight hypersensitivity. The vampire takes 20 radiant damage when it starts its turn in sunlight. While in sunlight, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. Actions. Multi-attack. Vampire form only. The vampire makes 2 attacks, only one of which can be a bite attack. Unarmed strike. Vampire form only. Melee weapon attack, +9 to hit, reach 5 feet, 1 creature only. Hit 8 or 1d8 +4 bludgeoning damage. Instead of dealing damage, the vampire can grapple the target. The escape DC is 18. Bite, bat or vampire form. Melee weapon attack, +9 to hit. Reach 5 feet. 1 willing creature or a creature that is grappled by the vampire, incapacitated or restrained. Hit 7 or 1d6 +4 piercing damage +10 or 3d6 necrotic damage. The target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the necrotic damage taken, and the vampire regains hit points equal to that amount. Their reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if this effect reduces its hit point maximum to 0. A humanoid slain in this way and then buried in the ground rises the following night as a vampire spawn under the vampire's control. Charm. The vampire targets one humanoid it can see within 30 feet of it. If the target can see the vampire, the target must succeed on a DC 17 wisdom saving throw against this magic, or be charmed by the vampire. The charmed target regards the vampire as a trusted friend to be heeded and protected. Although the target isn't under the vampire's control, it takes the vampire's requests or actions in the most favorable way it can, and it is a willing target for the vampire's bite attack. Each time the vampire or the vampire's companions do anything harmful to the target, it can repeat the saving throw, ending the effect on itself on a success. Otherwise, the effect lasts 24 hours or until the vampire is destroyed. Is on a different plane of existence than the target, or takes a bonus action to end the effect. Children of the Night, once per day. The vampire magically calls 2d4 swarms of bats or rats, provided that the sun isn't up. While outdoors, the vampire can call 3d6 wolves instead. The called creatures arrive in 1d4 rounds, acting as allies of the vampire and obeying its spoken commands. The beasts remain for 1 hour until the vampire dies, or until the vampire dismisses them as a bonus action. Legendary actions. The vampire can take 3 legendary actions, choosing from the options below. Only one legendary action option can be used at a time, and only at the end of another creature's turn. The vampire regains spent legendary actions at the start of its turn. Move. The vampire moves up to its speed without provoking opportunity attacks. Unarmed strike. The vampire makes 1 unarmed strike. Bite. Costs 2 actions. The vampire makes 1 bite attack. So much for the general stat block of an ordinary vampire. Now here's some information on variants, vampire warriors and spellcasters. Some vampires have martial training and battlefield experience. A warrior vampire wearing plate armor, AC 18, and wielding a great sword has a challenge rating of 15 or 13,000 XP, and the following additional action options. Multi-attack, the vampire makes 2 great sword attacks. Great sword, melee weapon attack, +9 to hit. Reach, 5 feet, 1 creature. Hit, 11 or 2d6 +4 slashing damage. Some vampires are practitioners of the arcane arts. A spellcaster vampire has a challenge rating of 15 and the following traits. Spellcasting. The vampire is a 9th level spellcaster. Its spellcasting ability is intelligence. Spell save DC 15 +7 to hit with spells attack. The vampire has the following wizard spells prepared. Cantrips. Mage Hand, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost. First level, 4 slots. Comprehend languages, Fog, Cloud, and Sleep. Second level, 3 slots. Detect Thoughts, Gust of Wind, and Mirror Image. Third level, 3 slots. animate dead, bestow curse, and non-detection. 4th level with 3 slots, blight and greater invisibility. 5th level, 1 slot, dominate person. Now let's have a look at the stat block for Vampire Spawn. In my last session, where I DM'd, my players encountered their first vampire spawn, and it went okay. I think it took them longer to expect it to take care of it, but nobody died except the vampire spawn. A vampire spawn is a medium undead with an alignment of neutral evil. It has a natural armor class of 15 and 82 or 11d8 plus 33 hit points. Its walking speed is 30 feet. It has 16 points in strength, dexterity, and constitution with a modifier of 3. Its intelligence is an 11 with a modifier of 0. Its wisdom is a 10, also with a modifier of 0. And it has 12 points in charisma with a modifier of 1. Its saving throws, dexterity plus 6 and wisdom plus 6. It has 3 in perception, plus 3 in perception, and plus 6 in stealth. It is resistant against necrotic, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons. It has 60 feet of dark vision and a passive perception of 13. It comprehends and speaks all languages it knew in life. Its challenge rating is 5, and you would gain 1800 XP from defeating it. Regeneration. The vampire regains 10 hit points at the start of its turn if it has at least 1 hit point and isn't in sunlight or running water. If the vampire takes radiant damage or damage from holy water, this trait doesn't function at the start of the vampire's next turn. Spider climb. The vampire can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. The vampire has the following weaknesses. Forbiddance. The vampire can't enter a residence without an invitation from one of the occupants. Harmed by running water. The vampire takes 20 acid damage when it ends its turn in running water. Stake to the heart. The vampire is destroyed if a piercing weapon made of wood is driven into its heart while it is incapacitated in its resting place. Sunlight hypersensitivity. The vampire takes 20 radiant damage when it starts its turn in sunlight. While in sunlight, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. Actions. Multi-attack. The vampire makes 2 attacks, only one of which can be a bite attack. Claws. Melee weapon attack. Plus 6 to hit. Reach 5 feet. 1 creature. Hit 8 or 2d4 plus 3 slashing damage. Instead of dealing damage, the vampire can grapple the target. The escape DC is 13. Bite. melee attack, +6 to hit, reach 5 feet, 1 willing creature or a creature that is grappled by the vampire, incapacitated or restrained. Hit 6 or 1d6 +3 piercing damage, +7 or 2d6 necrotic damage. The target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the necrotic damage taken, and the vampire regains hit points equal to that amount. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if this effect reduces its hit point maximum to 0. So much for vampires and vampire spawn. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this relaxing and a bit interesting. Now, I think I have made up my mind and will do a video on Curse of Strahd, which is such an amazing setting and a really fun campaign to run and really fun to play in, because ironically I DM the same campaign I am a player in with a different group, and the story develops completely different. Anyway, so much for today. Thank you very much for spending your time with me, and see you again next time. Bye bye, fellow nerds.